Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dobro jutro. Thank you very much for the kind invitation and kind introduction. So my name is Georg Frank. I'm conservationist in the Donau National Park in Austria, and since 15 years I have the big honor to cooperate within this Danube Parks network with all these greatest areas along the Danube, so with all national parks, biosphere reserves, nature parks, and as you mentioned, with all the amazing people working in these areas for the nature conservation along the Danube. Altogether, since many years, we work to launch this Danube Wild Island initiative. I will present it. It's an initiative to conserve and present and protect the wild islands along the Danube River. And we are very happy that with 1st of September this year, we started now this LIFE project, which is one of the largest LIFE projects which have ever been approved in Europe. Let me introduce you, let me start with one slide to show you the importance of nature conservation along the Danube. I think it's clear that nature conservation in Europe can be successful only if we are successful to protect and to preserve these extremely high natural values along the Danube. This slide should also illustrate that it's not only one of the largest rivers in Europe, it's the most international river in the world, so that is the reason why we are cooperating all along the Danube. And it's an ecological corridor connecting more biogeographic regions than any other biocorridor in Europe. And that is exactly one topic this Danube Parks network is also working for, because all these national parks, biosphere reserves, so starting from Romania up to Germany, and including also, of course, your areas with Kopački Nature Park is one of the core areas in this corridor, are the core sites for this ecological corridor. And in the last years, we successfully implemented several good practice projects on this Danube-wide scale, dealing with habitat management, conservation of species, also nature tourism is on the agenda. And of course, I can provide you then the final brochure of the last project which we just implemented. And what you can see if you visit our website, that one topic was always in the focus of our work, and that is river dynamization, river restoration, and the work for dynamic river habitats. And if you look to this photo, I think it's clear why we have this focus. Because only if you have an intact river, only if you have a river with a more or less intact sediment regime, then we can have habitats like that, which are of extremely beauty, of course, and in my next slides I will show you also of extremely high natural value. So that's the reason, that's one reason why we have chosen this island, somehow as flagship habitats for our conservation work along the whole Danube. Just to mention two figures to illustrate why these islands are of such a high value and importance for nature conservation along the Danube. Danube Parks implemented a Danube-wide survey for flagship habitats or indicator species, bird species along the whole Danube. And in the middle of the photo, you see the clutch of the little-ringed plover, a very good indicator species for these intact habitats. And we found out that 80% of the population of this bird breed on islands. Or just to give you another example, if you look to the priority habitat of softwood forests, so you hear an example with this Salix alba forests, so it's a priority habitat of the European Union. It's in bad and unfavorable conservation status in all biogeographic regions. But if you look to our islands, then you find an extremely high standard of these forests there, and 40% of the softwood forests on these islands are in a really very good status. And what we always want to highlight, if you want to see primeval forests, virgin forests along the Danube, then you have to go to these islands, which are some of them really untouched of human impacts, more or less untouched, of course. And there's another reason why we have chosen these islands as somehow as this flagship habitat for our work, and that is the reason that, of course, navigation is one of the biggest impact on the river. If you work with nature conservation on the rivers, you know that we have these embankments, we have these river regulations, and of course that's one of the big limiting factor for a dynamic process along the river. And these islands are exactly on the interface of core zones for nature conservation and the core zone, let's say, of the navigation route. And that's an example from Bulgaria. This very famous Milka Island is one of the oldest growth forests, so it's really a virgin forest, extremely high value. And as you see, the navigation route is directly on the edge between this island and the core zone of the nature park. And that was a reason why we have chosen these islands. And how we started is, some years ago we started to make an inventory of these islands along the whole Danube. It's the very first inventory on this scale. I have chosen the picture from your section, from the cross-border section, Serbia, Croatia. And what you see are different colors of this inventory. The blue ones are really natural islands. These are how we call them wild islands. Islands which are mainly untouched by humans, not regulated, no infrastructure on it, no intense forestry on it. But we have, of course, also category B. These are the yellow ones. These are islands which are in very good status, very near natural, but with potential for restoration. So we call them category B islands with potential when we work with restoration or conservation actions to qualify them somehow as wild islands. But of course we have also red islands. Some of them are also very valuable when it comes to biodiversity, but not as natural or near natural as the other categories. So when you look to this picture, then it symbolizes, of course, that these islands really connects the whole Danube, connects all our protected areas, and can really act as stepping stones of these dynamic habitats along the whole Danube section. And I think the figures of the inventory are impressive. So we identified 900 islands. We are speaking of an area of 138,000 hectares, so it's really a scale where with big effect, or possible big effect on the cooperation along the Danube. But what we focus on are these 147 islands, these wild islands covering 14,000 hectares, which are nearly untouched by human impact. Just to symbolize these figures, I mentioned it already, these different categories. With this slide, I would like to show the responsibility of each of our countries, of all our protected areas, to work for this conservation. You see the high importance, of course, of the lower Danube, where the quality of the river is even higher. So the high number of category A wild islands, for example, in Romania. But I also would highlight the big importance of the cross-border section in Croatia and Serbia to work for this island conservation. And as I mentioned already, and as it was mentioned already in the first presentation by Ms. Kappa, so we launched this Live Wild Island project. It's a project budget, with a project budget of over 14 million euros. We have the following objectives. So we want to establish an ecological corridor for this dynamic riverine habitats with these islands as stepping stones. This should help us to promote river dynamics, to promote the non-intervention management in this area, and to raise the awareness for riverine wilderness. This we also want to achieve with restoration activities, in particular on this category B islands. And we have chosen this softwood forest, this gallery forest, as somehow as an umbrella habitat, because this habitat exactly shows if you are successful with your restoration work on a long term or not. I think I stressed it already several times now. This all is done on a transnational and Danube-wide scale. It's done in a very cross-sectoral cooperation. So the partnership includes nature conservation as the backbone, I would say, of this project. But we have strong and very ambitious partners from waterway sector, hydropower sector, and forestry sector. And at the end, we would like, if it's a successful project, I think it could be a good practice for green and blue infrastructure on European scale, and I will come to this on my last slides then. Just a brief, short look to the partnership. I mentioned it's a very wide partnership with 15 partners from basically all Danube countries. In red you can see the importance of the Croatian partners in this project. Not only in this project, so we are very happy that Kopački Rit hosts one of the most important seats of the Danube Parks Association. Vlatko Rosac is the president of this Danube Parks network. But we're also happy that here in Croatia a very well partnership was established between the nature park and Croatian forest, and I will present one of their project activities. And we are very thankful to the Energy Efficiency and Environmental Protection Fund for co-financing this project. So you see, Croatia is a key part in this project, so I'm very happy for the invitation. I cannot give you details to all project activities which we have in mind. These are the activities. In green you see our wild islands, and at the end we will see how much we can bring under strictly protection. Ramsar was mentioned as one important option, and the red dots show concrete conservation actions. and I cannot present you all of these actions, so I will focus on 3 examples here in your section of the Danube. I start with one example with a river restoration project, with a large-scale river restoration project, just a few kilometers upstream in the Dunajdrava National Park. Maybe you have recognized the big number of islands in the Hungarian section. The reason for that is because there are quite a long number of river regulation structures, and these structures induced the establishment of islands, but we have now the negative effect that these river regulations reduce the habitat quality of these islands. So most of them will get lost soon in their quality as islands. So we're working on an optimization of these river regulation structures together with the waterway administrations from Adovicik to optimize this island habitat. That was just a field trip 2 days ago. You see the problem that the island is not an island anymore because of big sedimentation processes, and what the colleagues in the Dunajdrava National Park together with Adovicik would like to do is to restore this area, to improve the water current in this area and to restore this island as an island again. We have several of these large-scale river restoration projects ongoing from Romania to upstream to Germany. Another example from Serbia. So we just cross the border and go to the Gornje Podunjave Special Nature Reserve. And I think it's a very good example of the success of our cooperation. This project is implemented by Vojvodina Šume Public Forest Enterprise. You see the very dynamic area in the historical map. And Vojvodina Šume will redynamize 2 side dams to restore this area on a large scale, so they expect big hydrological improvement. But what I would highlight is that we have a forest enterprise which is responsible for forestry in the area, but also for nature conservation. And I would like to highlight that Vojvodina Šume committed so they will create with this restoration project, they will create 2 new islands, and they will bring this under strictly protection, so a non-intervention management is ensured for this 45 hectares. So a big step, I would say, to have a partner from the forestry sector who takes over this responsibility. And another example now from the Kopački Rit Nature Park. Also here we have a good example of this cooperation between nature conservation and forestry sector. So as I stressed, this activity is implemented jointly by Hrvatska šume with the nature park. And we are happy that also one of the core zones of the nature park is one of our islands. And within this project, we can transfer all still existing hybrid poplar plantations into native stands. These are just a few examples. Just to give you an impression of the scale of the project, I mentioned that the total budget is over 14 million euros, and we are very proud that more than 70% really goes into concrete conservation actions to restore 34 islands. The main focus is on the long-term restoration of these islands by improving the hydromorphological restoration. So you see more than 55% of the project budget goes into this action where we expect long-term improvements. But we also have 12 forest restoration actions. I mentioned 2 of them, dealing with the plantation, transformation of plantations, invasive alien species management, etc. And I'm coming to my last point. For me, the most important strategic aspect of the project is that we would be happy to establish a Danube-wide ecological corridor to strengthen this corridor. And I mentioned already some perspectives, for example, with the Ramsar initiative. And you see the budget for this strategic perspective of the project is very low, because you cannot buy such a strategic approach. This can be done only with strategic partners. We have 54 strategic partners, and the Ramsar initiative is one of them. And also we are in close cooperation with the IUCN, so we really hope at the end of this project we come up with a good example for ecological connectivity on a European scale. And that is what is also expected from the EU Commission. Here an example from the Director for Natural Capital, and also from the EU Biodiversity Strategy, from the coordinator. Both stress that there is a big strategic importance of this project. They both expect a big step to establish a corridor as an example also for other large rivers in Europe, and of course we will do the best to implement this. I thank you for your interest. Just to show you the key role of Kopacki Reed in this large project is that next year we will be back with Kopacki Reed is responsible for the monitoring coordination of the whole project. There will be the kick-off somehow workshop for that. And we also would like to celebrate the beauty of the Danube, so we will have also included Wild Island festivals, and next year we will combine the working task in Kopacki Reed with the festival in Mohacs in the Donau National Park. Thank you.